Hello, hello.
Hello.
Oh,
Hey, buddy.
Doing a little eyebrow dance for the people.
Uh,
How's my audio? Okay.
fantastic.
yeah, how do I sound?
Sound great.
How about
Amazing.
me? I'm good. Everybody good?
Yeah, I think we're good. Hey,
Good.
everybody. Welcome to
Hi.
another episode. We'll get rolling here in a couple minutes. We're just getting situated. I had an eye exam today, so if I'm super dilated, it's because I love the show so much, but it's also because I have stuff in my eyes.
I can't
I'm
get
wearing
the
glasses.
I can't get the outline to post in the chat.
We can just refer to it. We'll be okay. Or I can do it. Hang on. I'll do it right now.
How are we,
Oh,
guys?
we're good. We are good. The show fucking sucks. I'm just
Yeah,
kidding.
it's horrible. I hate it. Kidding. I love
Jamie,
it.
the new segment will go after the how about before the alien lore section? Is that good?
Yeah, we said it's going to go after deep dive. So, yeah.
That's exactly it. Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll just put that in here quick.
Our chat room is full. Hey, everybody.
Hi, everybody.
Hey.
Stephen Monahan, Julian D'Souza, Tyler
Hey, what's
Miller,
up, guys?
Zeno Nick,
Julian, oh shit, there's so many people we know. I love that. It's so exciting.
Wired
Yeah, thanks for
Workshop.
being here.
Yeah, thanks for coming.
Mario. What up, Mario?
Mario!
Mario!
Rufy. Oh, that's appropriate for this, actually.
Is that like a Karate Kid thing?
No, Hook, Rufio.
Oh, that's right. Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
Oh
Oh,
my
yeah.
God.
Okay. Okay.
Patrick's fired. Patrick's fired.
Patrick's
Yeah.
like,
I thought that was from Karate Kid. I don't know. A long day.
Are we
Um,
ready? I still can't. Did you add it to the chat, Patrick?
it's in the chat. Yep.
yeah, it's
I
there.
You
can't.
can't see that?
I can't. I don't know why.
Okay. Well, we got
Interesting.
it. So let's get rolling. We got our timers all set because we're doing this by the numbers and
Are we
smooth,
ready?
On the
not
ready,
in order.
Everybody
people.
ready?
Here we
Yep.
go. Yeah.
Welcome to Unearthed, an Alien Earth after show brought to you by Perfect Organism, the Alien Saga podcast. I'm your host, Jamie Prater, and I'm joined by my co-hosts.
Patrick Green.
Harry Chicos.
And Andy Geek Girl.
And what a show we have tonight. It was quite the episode, as I'm hoping everyone else is feeling the same way. I was breathless at the end. We're going to get all to it, and I'm going to hand it to Patrick to give us an overview.
Yeah, let's do it. So we start off with Boy Cavalier telling Kirsch to recover the specimens no matter what. Wendy finds Joe, who has been cocooned, and she has a pretty epic fight with the xenomorph XX121. Morrow shows up. I have to accept. I'm going to pause for a second. Babu Sise is like maybe my favorite actor, like right now. Like I think he's like magnetic. We'll get to that more in a second. But anyway, so Morrow shows up. He confronts Smee and Slightly and he initiates the data transfer of Mother, which goes to something that I brought up last episode about the chip in his head. And he also plants a little chip of a different color on Slightly. We also have the specimens being recovered to Neverland, and we have Joe and Wendy in recovery. We find out that Boy Cavalier, for all of his talk of being so brilliant, is not even an engineer. He has other people doing the work for him. We have Smee and Slightly dealing in different ways with the fear of what just happened to them, the fallout emotionally of that, and also this increasing sense that their lives are not really the lives they thought they were anymore, and that there's surveillance of many different levels happening on them, including a new level, which is revealed after that because Morrow starts talking to Slightly through that thing that he put on his neck. We have Morrow talking to Yutani, who is, we find out, of course, the granddaughter of the founder of the company. Curly confronts Boy Cavalier and says she wants to be his new protege, and he talks about a desire for her to read and start preparing that maybe she can be that voice that's smarter than him that he wants to talk to. And we learn a lot about why he chose the Peter Pan characters and why he's so obsessed with the idea of children, which I hope we get to talk quite a bit about tonight because I thought that was very interesting and not what I was expecting at all. We have Joe getting a lung taken out, and that lung is not being, I thought when it was first happening, I was like, oh, lung transplant. That's what's happening because it was placed into this machine. An embryo was removed from the ovomorph. This going to be a lot to talk about with that because we're seeing different life cycle stuff, and that's going to be always fun to discuss. And we have Wendy, who awakens under the care of Dame Sylvia. She runs and she is subjected to acoustical torture, showing that she clearly has some kind of a link with the Xeno in some way. And then we have the episode ending with the little embryo guy swimming into the lung. And we are brought home with a fantastic track from the Black Album. We have Metallica's Wherever I May Roam, closing the episode out, keeping our string of classic metal tunes alive. And that's about what we got.
Perfect synopsis. Loved it. All right, so let's just go right into immediate reactions. We're all kind of smiling right now, so let's see why. Maybe something different hit with each one of us, but what do you guys think?
Yeah, I really loved it. I thought episode 3 was the best so far. I mean, obviously things are building up to what we see in this episode, and you do definitely get to see a few things come to fruition, which is really, really great. Uh, for instance, like I just love the whole opening sequence. Wendy like saving her brother, but then them having to fight the xenomorph, like that was really wild. And them trying to trap it, like some nods to Alien 3 uh, in that as well. And then I just really enjoyed everything back on the island. Obviously, I know now that the guys in the suits are the cleaning the mold on the walls, but it's still really creepy and it sets this really um, just unnerving tone, I feel like, as they're walking through the hallways, which is really cool. You're not on a spaceship, but you feel like you're somewhere unknown and mysterious like that in space. And so, yeah, just initial reactions. Loved it. The alien tadpole at the end, just icing on the cake. And I can't wait to talk about, additional cycles in this life cycle now. It's just so cool that we have that addition.
I'll go. Something that I love is we got a music cue that I really love that I wrote about quite a bit in the review today in this episode, which is called Procession. And fittingly, it happens while they are walking back into the Neverland Ranch and Neverland Island rather, and they're bringing the specimens, and they're bringing Joe, and they're bringing Wendy, and we have this completely unique for the Alien universe, beautiful multi-tracked surf reverb, Telecasters singing guitar track, which on the album I also love because I think it's really beautiful and kind of mournful and interesting. But here it just carries this like emotional weight. I really like that sequence would have been a very easy one to make kind of simple. It's like, oh, they won, they got the specimens. Here we go. Like, let's move, let's move, let's move, let's move, let's move. And then instead of that, we had like, 2 minutes of really slow, kind of like careful music and the sense of this doom, like this fucking doom walking back into the island. And we see Boy Cavalier become like, just his eyes just grow like owls when he sees the specimen or what remains of it coming in. I love that. I loved how, again, Morrow like is already one of my favorite characters in any Alien thing. And I know we've only seen a little bit of him, but like I know enough already to say kind of no matter what happens, he's going to be one of my favorite. I thought he was so magnetic and so interesting and so unpredictable and unexpected. And his dialogue that he has with Slightly went like not at all how I thought it was going to go. Like he almost he acted very paternal to him and clearly in a manipulative way. Like it's like Morrow definitely has an ulterior motive here, but I almost sensed during that like the actual father in him was coming out, like this father who left his daughter 65 years ago. Really interesting character, really layered, really dangerous, and I just think Morrow is like such a magnetic addition to the show and to this universe.
Yeah, one of my favorite aspects just right off the bat is the whole Peter Pan thing, which I thought going in I was gonna absolutely hate, and it's becoming one of my favorite things. Um, I love seeing adult actors capturing what it is to be a child because it really hits home what how children act when we see this juxtaposition of these so-called adults. If it was just children, we would just kind of take it for what it is. And I love the interactions with Kirsch and them, and just how Timothy Oliphant's playing that, and this sort of the vibe he's giving off. I love like what and Morrow as well. The questions, literal questions, the riddles that are proposed, but then, right, and then these sort of underlying themes with Boy Cavalier and his whole notion of what children bring to the table and why he's fascinated by them. I can't wait to see where this is going. There's so much I want to talk about with that, but just initially, that's it. And then, of course, the biology, just more biology, the little glimpses we saw of the other ones, but then the whole tadpole at the end was so cool. I loved it.
Yeah, I loved it too. I left this episode very unnerved. I was literally like needing a breath before I watch more. Like it really unnerved me. Not just, of course, the creatures. I did think that the treatment of the alien was just chef's kiss. How brutal and maniacal it was, and how it sort of trapped them. It lured them in like beasts do to trap them. It's just so well done. But I think one of my favorite parts of this show, this episode so far, is when Smee, I think that's her name, or is it Nibs? Is Smee the
Nibs.
redhead? Nibs.
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 Nibs. Okay, when Nibs starts questioning what is this Peter Pan thing? What are these names? And I love that because we started questioning that right away when we first heard about this, when things started leaking about the show. And they start coming into agency. Like, they're not buying everything. For a minute they were, but I think what's really touching me is that I see them as children. I don't see them as adults. These are children in this story, and I'm worried about them. And this episode specifically, the atmosphere was brooding, it was morose, it was dark. It's everything that I want from Alien, but also so new and so different. And yeah, I'm still processing it, to be honest with you. I'm still processing what I've seen, and it's going to take me a while to really come to larger conclusions and more thoughts about what I've seen.
Yeah, well said, Jamie. I'm definitely, I think we're all still processing it. There was so much in this episode. And to your point on Nibs, I was scared she was going to like try to commit suicide. Like I hate to, it's very dark and she's questioning really like her, well, yeah, her humanity in a way, but like who she is, her consciousness, how is this all working? And that is, a very scary thought for her. And so yeah, yeah, you're in that moment with her. It's Oh, yeah, I'm feeling it. So, anyway, how about we move to a little company debriefing and we can dive a little bit deeper into some of these themes. I know, Andy, you're bringing up Peter Pan again. That theme is obviously running through these characters and uh, sort of the story arc with Boy Cavalier a little bit and how he's running Prodigy and how he wants to have these genius conversations, right? Or talk to somebody smarter than him. You see a little bit of that more which is also really great. And to Patrick, your point, Morrow, beautiful character, very wonderfully like how his story is being told. I loved his conversation was slightly like I in just a way to tell his backstory a little bit. We don't need to see a flashback of him with his child, right? It's through that conversation, that very intimate conversation that you get to understand that he's a father and that the creatures are his life's work and well, he doesn't technically bring that up, but you know what I mean. You're just like we're getting these pieces of information that you have to then put the pieces together in your mind about who this person is, and I absolutely love that. So, yeah. Anyway, let's dive a little bit deeper. Who wants to kick it off?
I'll kick it off with some stuff from the chat. What I love is that already we have reached a point with the after show where there's too many comments to keep up with. So I'm going to try to kind of filter them in as we go through here a little bit. But one of them that speaks to something that you're teeing up here and that Jamie was just talking about is Lily Newmark as Nibs and what's going on with her and her kind of dissociative state, which is something that I think I've really been hoping was going to be dealt with. And, something that has been a kind of a complaint of some of the early episodes by some people has been that they feel too much kind of like superhero stories or kind of like, they're kind of just like super powered kids, like saving the world, like Captain Planet or something. To me, I never felt like that was what was going on. But we are clearly now seeing that is not what's happening at all, and that these kids really are trapped. And I think Micah brought something up great tonight, where she said, "Not since Lambert have I seen a character so consistently filled with a sense that something is definitely wrong." the way that Lily Newmark as Nibs is showing us as an audience that something is deeply, deeply wrong with the situation is beautiful. And it's been there from the very beginning. Because remember, she was the one who asked about going home, and she was the one who learned that she couldn't. Like, so from the very beginning of this thing, she's been the character. And remember, she was afraid of death, and she was talking about how she didn't like that, and she was kind of grabbing the carpet. I love that we have kind of a new Lambert character in this to give the audience this vessel to pour a lot of our kind of anxiety into and to kind of see the story through. And I think, to Perry's point, when she's looking into the mirror and she's like pressing on her eye. I mean, I was so I think many of us have been in moments like that in our lives where we've kind of felt trapped. Like this was kind of it almost. And the way that she plays that is just exquisite. And just to some of the chat comments quickly, Steve Monahan says he wants to know what's going on with Nibs. Does she already know, that she's that hang on, does she already have that thing in her? Is she going to get it? She obviously has a connection to it. Um, I don't know what that was
Maybe the
referring to because I think I
TOS,
missed an earlier.
maybe the Teocellus
The
with the
Acellus,
eye.
maybe. Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe that's that's what he's talking about. Thank you very much, Perry.
Hmm.
That's exactly what he's
Yes.
talking about. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, there's kind of a back and forth about that. And Julian D'Souza says he was interpreting Nib's vibe as feeling like she's not real, like other people are looking through her eyes, kind of like what that weird company guy was explaining
Hmm.
to Smee and Slightly. And there's some really nice back and forth on that. And I think that is definitely getting at the heart of what's going on, is they are gradually realizing that their bodies are just not their bodies, that they are living in rented space, and that the landlords of that space do not have their best interests at heart. I love there's this beautiful moment of kind of layered surveillance that happens when Smee and Slightly, who are also becoming some of my favorite characters ever in Alien, like that shot. Sorry to get off topic already. Clearly, I'm not looking at the timer. That shot when Kirsch is watching them, and Smee goes to
The
sit next to Slightly and
arm.
puts his arm around him. I mean, it's
Yes.
such a real moment that kids do. Like that is just so. I
Yes.
mean, I cried when that happened. It really felt so real, like things I've seen my kids do. But before that, you have Slightly with this really acute sense that like something is wrong. Like that whole conversation, he is clearly unsettled, and not just by the monster, but by the situation that they're gradually realizing they're kind of trapped in. And then I love how, when Adam Ines comes in and he says, oh, we see everything through your eyes. And he goes, what? Like, I don't like that. And then we see that Kirsch was just on the other side of the wall. They didn't even know that. Like, Kirsch, they don't even have to look through their eyes. They're just trapped in a freaking fish tank this entire time. That, like, that sense of deep dread is, I think, what is really anchoring me with this series, and what I was hoping Hawley was doing from the very beginning, which is not saying that this is like a good thing or a heroic thing or a fun thing, saying rather that this is a dread that is all pervasive and showing itself in many different forms.
What I'd
Yeah.
like to add,
Oh, God.
I just would say what I'd like to add to that in terms of larger themes is something Patrick mentioned in our first after show, which is flora disguised as fauna. And I really think as it relates to these kids, not all of them, but certainly Nibs being one of them, she could perhaps be flora disguised or fauna, one of those two. We don't know. And what's scary is they don't know what they are. They're coming in like they're looking at themselves as they're these constructs. They're not just, oh, we're going to save your children and here's a new life for them. It's they're in a zoo and they are the animals in this zoo. And what are they? We don't know what they are. I don't even think Boy Cavalier knows what they are. It's starting the thread is starting to unravel in every character, and even in Kirsch, you can just, at least for in my viewing, Kirsch is looking at things like what's going on here, what's happening here. You just see a little bit more in his eyes, and the way that he looks at these children, because they are children, and it is devastating to watch them realize that mom and dad, like there is no going home, there is no more mom and dad. We aren't even called who we used to be. It's just that to me, that's terrifying to me. One of the things that terrified me about episode 3 is that theme right there of not knowing who you are. Not even the people who made you know who you are. And I suppose real agency, you can tell yourself who you are, but really at the heart of this question for me, this show right now is who are we? And I don't think one person can answer that for humanity. I think that's a subjective question. But that question is really pervasive in this episode. Who are we? Who is Boy Cavalier? Who is Kirsch? Who is Mara? What are these things? Because humans can become things. And when we become human, or when we are in our best human state, we have empathy and we show empathy. And that is very lacking in Boy Cavalier, who is the head of everything. And you can tell that he does not really know what's going on. He's just an onlooker. It's fascinating to me.
I mean, that whole discussion with empathy with Curly, where she says, I'm the best one. And her reasoning is, I have the best ideas. And Wendy is concerned about her brother. So basically saying, like, she has empathy, so she's weaker, and I do not. And I just have the big ideas. And there's something in Boy Cavalier's eyes that sparked at that. I mean, I'm loving the obviousness of his name, the apt name. Like, he's so cavalier with their feelings, the fact that they are kids, the fact that they are trapped. He's just like, it's a game to him. It's this chess game where he's like, where can I make the next move? How can I use this thing that fell into my lap, these creatures that fell into my lap to my advantage? He's even cavalier with his own body by just sticking his face and all the thing we complain about most people doing, just I'm going to stick my face in this egg and not know what it's about. He's just playing with other people or things because he views them as things. And I loved that conversation with Carly because it really set up that whole empathy is weakness. And that's really what tethers us to humanity. And then just really quickly with the nibs thing, going back, the two things that she really brings up was the name, her complaining about names, her complaining that the Lost Boys are named that, but half of them are girls, and looking into the eyes, right? Like the eyes are the windows to the soul, and your name is such a huge part of your identity. And the fact that she brought both of those up, I love her character. I thought she like shined in this episode and really creeped me out. And then just lastly, the whole thing with Morrow, his conversation with Slightly, I got very creepy vibes from that. I got like old man on the internet talking to kid vibes. Like, oh, I'm gonna be your friend. Like come into my van because I have candy kind of vibes. Like he's luring them. Like everybody needs a friend, and he's confusing him. He's creeping him out. Slightly got creeped out by that for sure. So I understand. Like, there's this weird dichotomy with Morrow because he's talking about how he had a girl, but then he's just very creepy, and it's unnerving me, like you were saying.
I love that, Andy. And I really, what I was gonna say, I think touches on that, yeah, in just a really cool way because I d absolutely wanted to talk about Morrow, but really super quick, I just wanted to touch on the whole idea of storytelling through these children, right, as adults. I think it's such a clever way to explore everything that we know about the Alien franchise, like the eggs, the danger around everything. They're not Marines going into a hive where they need to be super careful, but they can't use their guns, but everybody don't touch nothing, type of a thing. It's like, what a cool way for Holly to come up with this idea to explore some of those old tropes again, but in a new and like a fun way, because this is TV. So like you have to have some likable characters and some more comedic relief than you would in an film. And so what I love is that opening scene when they're like slightly, and who's the other kid again?
It's me.
Smee, yes. Slightly and Smee are like dancing around the eggs and they're having that conversation. And I just remember they said, oh, that was full on sci-fi or something like that. They're talking about like what they both experienced, like the aliens they encountered. I just am like, oh, that's such a fun and lovely conversation and really lightens the mood. But you also get to like explore all these new organisms again, through their eyes as children, and it just makes sense in that way, why they would be so innocent around these things and not really fully understand what they're dealing with. Really loved that. So part two, I just wanted to touch on Morrow really quick. The things I wrote down um, are just that like this was his life's work. He says that. And I think to your point, Andy, like it's creepy, right? But imagine you get hired for a job and maybe it's like your sole occupation, you studied for it. Patrick, I know you're, going back to school for this thing, and like imagine you had to, it cost you 65 years of your life. You're going to lose both your kid. Everybody you know right now is going to be gone when you wake up, but you found like the cure for the most disastrous disease in the world, right? And then someone, and through a mistake, the vial that you had that's going to do that gets misplaced in another country, and another company comes in to take it and take your work away from you. You gave up everything for that purpose, right? And so are you going to just let it go that easily? Or are you not going to want to fight for that? And I think that is truly what Morrow is struggling with, and he almost has like this conversation with himself, his like about the morals and like his integrity and what's ethical and what's not when he's doing the download transfer, which I think obviously is going to come up again, but he's really trying to figure out when is a machine not a machine, you know? I think that's just so great. So anyway, Patrick, bring us into the new segment.
Yeah, well, I think Jamie actually is going to introduce this new segment.
Oh, snap.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
this next segment comes from just some feedback that we got in order to keep us more balanced and honest. Not that we're not an honest podcast. It's called "I Like Griping," and of course, it's a famous quote from Lambert from Alien. And we just wanted to address some things in the show, and we certainly could talk about this episode, but in the show that aren't working. But before we get into that, just a couple of things, a couple of housekeeping things. While most of us on Perfect Organism love this show, we are not bought and paid for by FX for these opinions. Yes, FX has bought ads on our formal podcast for this series, which we've enjoyed working with them. We just happen to love this show. Most of us do. And there are some people on the team who don't like it as much as us four specifically do. But like, for instance, Holden, who's a part of our team, he loves the show as well. But just, yeah, we are here because we love the show. And as those of you who have been listening to us during the Romulus days, all of us didn't really enjoy that. I had major issues with that film, and I still do. And I think all of us, on some level, have had issues with Romulus, in one degree or the other. Even though generally most of us enjoy the film, there's some real big issues with that. That being said, I think it's important to talk about what isn't working on the show, and I'll start that off. Myself, I think that the Alien, there's some great moments, great shots of it. I think it's inconsistent. I think that sometimes it looks like a dry puppet. Other times, when it's got the slime over it, it looks really alive. I think there's one shot in the first episode where Morrow's in the mother room and the alien's outside the door, and all of a sudden it stops, and it's like someone pulls it on a chair back, and the head looks like it's the size of a rhinoceros. It just looks strangely huge. It looks like it, and it looks like it was um 3D printed. It just didn't really work for me. And of course, the exposition in episode one was really clunky. What I love about the Alien trilogy, the first three films specifically, is that the directors really trusted the audience, and I think initially with this show, and in the first two or three episodes, so let's just say the first two really, that trust wasn't there, and a lot of stuff was just like showing and telling and talking to the audience directly, and I just was like, where's the trust for the audience? Why are you telling us this? Let us explore this naturally and play this less safe, play this a little bit more controversial. Let us understand, because we're curious, and and in that curiosity, we'll figure things out. So that being said, I'm going to hand it off to whoever wants to go next.
Yeah, I can say my issue mainly was exposition in the first episode, which I really thought just set a weird tone for it because it's not really Hawley's normal, writing style. Uh, I'm glad that it's kind of done. I think, part of that might be because we're just not used to the proportions of an entire television series, and so what might have been a minute and a half in a movie ends up being like 5 minutes of exposition for a TV series. So, I can see some ways of kind of justifying it, but I would have rather not had that. I think the creature design is very inconsistent for me too. I think it's interesting because from some angles, like the XX121 to me looks like incredibly good, but from a lot of angles it doesn't, and it kind of looks like multiple costumes that are to different levels of like being finished. There's just kind of a weird inconsistency to it. I find it kind of unfortunate. Our friend Dane Hallett, who's an incredibly gifted artist, who's worked on a number of Alien films, did this little thing where he kind of fixed the face of it on Instagram this morning, and I do agree with him. Like, it does look, in my opinion, better with more of kind of a classic look. I think that there's this kind of weird shroud thing on the mouth that sometimes really works. Like when it's in motion, I think it looks really good, but a static shot, it really just looks like a piece of rubber to me or something. So yeah, there's just kind of weirdnesses with that. And in terms of like larger complaints, I don't have any. Like I really don't. One complaint that I have is the fact that we get accused of being bought out by a network for having a positive opinion. Like, just like, come on, just like shut up. Like, don't do that. Like, it's so frustrating because it makes me feel like I have to reach for things to complain about, when the reality is like, this is an after show. We have a pretty limited amount of time, and we're really just having a great time, and we're very excited. If you think that means that we're not credible, then, like, I don't know, go find another podcast to listen to, because we are. But that being said, we are not bought out by FX, to Jamie's point, at all. And for whatever it's worth, one of the major stipulations of the contract that we signed with them for advertising was that we would never have to get approval on anything and never have to sacrifice any of our honest opinions. And they were 100% in support of that. So we can say whatever we want. And what I want to say is the show's dope as fuck, and I'm really, really excited about it.
Yeah, I agree. I'm kind of with you on all the gripes. Really, the only issue was the beginning of the first episode. It just kind of felt clunky, like you were saying. The inconsistency, I think the acid to me just looks a little too neon and glowing and just a little too unrealistic, or as compared to something else. I really liked the opening shot of this one, but there were some scenes where it was hard to follow, and it did look like two different creatures. It did look kind of inconsistent. Um, it's a minor gripe because the way the format is, the show, it's hard to really, like, people are picking apart, and that's totally they're right, but it's hard for me to pick apart everything until I get the big picture anyway. And I kind of just want to let it unfold. And I'm loving this format because it's allowing me to just really ponder the bigger questions and not look at the details just yet. I'm sure when I watch it back again and again and see the whole thing, maybe I'll go back and say, oh, yeah, it doesn't look quite right here. But overall, I'm loving the vibe. I love the music. That scene that you were talking about, Patrick, absolutely stood out to me. It was like, just the setup, it was really like, it hit me to the core. I was like, I am loving this. Um, I feel like it's modern and yet still in place. I like trying to discover what things they're showing us. Like at one point, and maybe I only know this because I have like little girls who grew up, and like 10 years ago, we watched this movie called Epic. I think that's what they were watching. It's about this like scientist dad who like has to convince people that there's this world in the forest of fairies and like little things, and there's a battle between nature and like destroying nature. I guess it's kind of like Avatar-ish. But I think that's what they were watching, but I love looking for that and like finding clues. So really my gripes so far are minimal, and I just kind of want to let it over. I think after seeing the whole thing, I'll have more room. But I also don't like having to search out gripes. Like, if they hit me in the face, great, but so far nothing's doing that.
Yes, I also agree with some of the gripes you guys have brought up. I was really just going to touch on some things from episode three because overall, I don't really have a ton of gripes. Like, I'm definitely not a super analytical person. Like when I'm watching films or things like that. Like I can be for certain things, but I definitely I'm grateful for the fact that sometimes I can shut that off and just watch and like go for the ride. I think though it is important to bring up that we're all sort of searching for this first time thing again. Like you remember the first time you did something like really cool or fun or the first time you got drunk or something like that. I feel like with every other Alien piece of artwork cinema that has been created after the original three, we've always been like, you sit down, it opens up like it's a ship traveling through space, and then you're like, all right, I'm gonna get drunk for the first time again. Here we go. And then it's like, oh no. Oh man, you know what I mean? I feel like that's like what we've been going through with Prometheus, with Alien Covenant, and then a little bit with Romulus as well. I feel like Romulus maybe was the closest thing to feeling drunk again for the first time. I'm sorry that I'm using that analogy. I'm sober, by the way. But it works, right? Like it like in a sense. And so but it just has never like really hit the nail on the head. So what I love about Alien Earth is we're getting something very different, and we're getting a very new way to tell this story around these things that are familiar to us. But it definitely, for me, is feeling like that first time you did something again, like in that way, right? Like it's really beautiful to me, and I really love that. So, with all that said, the two things I really don't like, Andy, I agree that the acid is very like Predator green. I'm just like that's too green. Like the acid in Alien was very murky and more yellowish, right? It had more yellow tones, which just felt more like a real substance in a way. This feels like alien slime more. I don't know. It just doesn't fit with what we've seen in the past. And so I was kind of like, okay. And just the way that it bled out and things like that, I was like, it should have been a little bit more frightening, I think. And I almost thought instead of Hermit Joe getting the tail through the stomach or the lung. I thought it would have been cool if like his hand would have got burned off or something when he was like trying to move under it when they were in that shipping container. And that, and then Wendy just like pulling the alien around with the tongue, the hook in the tongue, like cool mechanics. I'm sure it was fun to shoot that and the stunt and everything. But I'm like, you guys, the alien is like a perfect organism. Like it doesn't get its tongue caught in a hook thing, if that's how scary you want to make this creature be. I just thought like and her killing it, I was like, no, 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 no. Like it should have escaped again. It should be like that thing running around Prodigy City, and then them, doing whatever they're gonna do with the eggs, back on the island. And so I don't know. That personally for me, I really loved that xenomorph. I wish it would have lived. But yeah, those are really my things, and I just feel like those are super nitpicky. I'm just like, that's fine. I'll get over it. All right, let's keep watching the show. So anyway. Patrick, you want to read some gripes from the comments
Yeah, we got
section?
it. We got to get to some
Let's
comments. And
go.
just to that last point, I definitely agree that I think there's a kind of a scaling issue going on because it's easy to forget that like the hybrids are like truly like incredibly strong. You know what I mean? Because they kind of come across like kids, and so I think there's this weird kind of visual thing going on where we're seeing the alien getting thrown around by like kind of young skinny people, and it doesn't really feel right. I mean, minor gripe, but I definitely hear you on that. It kind of looks a little weird, but whatever. The comments tonight are off the chain. There's so many theories. I'm like getting distracted reading all the theories people are writing in here, and I'm just gonna just touch on a few quick ones before we get to our final section. So one is our buddy Mario at Wired Workshop, who you need to follow because he does incredible builds of really, really cool stuff. Said, I loved when Smee and Slightly met up and were describing the creatures they saw. I thought it was hilarious and accurate of how I would talk to my friends in middle school. And I 100% agree on that.
100%.
Our buddy LP Longmire, follow him as well, especially on TikTok, says, I desperately need to know everyone's theory about the Prodigy wall. What is the guy cleaning? All three episodes made a point to show us that. The freaking mold growing on the wall or
Mold.
whatever it is one of my favorite things in this show. It is just so full of dread. And I love when, Nib is, when she's looking into like the eyes of the guy and he kind of turns around and they have that weird moment in the hallway. Um, just so cool.
Did it not look like the guy from Blade Runner?
Oh,
I
absolutely. Oh,
made your
yeah, very
eyes.
much.
I was like,
Yeah,
oh my
Chew.
God.
It looked
Yes.
like Chew, but with a protein farmer outfit from
Yeah.
2049. Uh, yeah, there's a lot of back and forth about the design of the alien. Steve Monahan says he's not entirely happy, but the rest of the show has been so great that it kind of makes up for it. There's a lot of discussion about if the alien's wet enough. I do think that is a design choice that Hawley's been pretty upfront about in a lot of places. I don't know if it's necessarily working that great because it does look a little dry to me, and I think that's part of what makes it look sort of artificial. That being said, we'll see if it kind of grows on us throughout the rest of the show. Maybe we'll get kind of more used to it. And there's been a lot of cool stuff about Tia Sellis and how that character seems to be really a hit so far. I freaking love that thing. Every time it's on screen anywhere, I am like, I need a toy of that. I need like a stuffed animal, maybe a tattoo. Anyway,
A
just so many great
Labubu.
things in the chat. This has been so much fun reading all these, and maybe we will, when we do our roundtable, circle back and do justice to some of your really cool stuff that you're saying. The last thing that our last kind of section before we close out is just on lore and world building. Oh, Jamie has something to say.
No, I just wanted to add this one last thing. One thing that I mentioned, I think, in our green room or offline in terms of a gripe. Less of a gripe. It's just more concerning the atmosphere. When they're in the facility, it's very melodramatic, and it reminds me of Alien Resurrection, which is not a good place to be. But this show is working on almost every level for me that when that happens, you can kind of forgive things, but the melodrama sometimes will pull me out, like this this dramatic pause after every line, just and like they don't really act like scientists, they don't really seem like real people, but then you get to the kids and all these other people and they seem like real people. So that would be my only gripe. But again, um this this segment is going to be interesting as we go forward, because the more I watch this show, the more any gripes I have are falling away. But and I think, like, the only thing that I want to say in terms of the beast is, or the creature, to Patrick's point, because he doesn't like that word. It's interesting in Alien and Aliens, which are the litmus test for these creatures, that they can shoot them so perfectly, but there's this struggle ever since then to get to shoot this creature to make it look like in continuity with itself. And I don't understand that. I don't understand why in this day and age, why there's issue with this thing looking good in every shot. Like, what's happening here? I don't know. I don't work in studio effects. I don't know how that, tons of work goes into that. So I'm never going to be like, fuck them, this looks awful. I'm never going to say that. It just looks inconsistent. To that end, this is going to be an interesting segment, and I'll hand it back to Patrick.
Yeah, and I think a major reason for that is it's just so brightly lit the whole time,
Mhm.
which is something I'm not personally crazy about, but I think considering how brightly lit it is, it looks really good, all things considered. So getting to the end here, we're talking a little bit about lore, world building, and stuff. To me, the biggest thing is whether or not Hawley is, retconning or revising or kind of writing over plagiarized prepotence, which of course is something that those of us who are monstrous Alex White fans might be a little bit upset about. I personally don't know if that is necessarily what's happening here. For those of you who haven't read something like, Cold Forge, for example, uh, or seen Alien Romulus, because this is also now an Alien Romulus. Plagiaris praepotens is this idea of like a pluripotent, little nugget of cells that basically starts like a black goo acceleration process inside of a host, and that's kind of what creates the egg, and it's implanted there by a facehugger. And here, of course, we have this tadpole-esque creature that is removed from the facehugger, almost like the cesarean section or something. And I think that's really interesting. I think adaptive biology is a multivariate and interesting thing, and I think in certain environmental conditions, certain animals act in different ways, and certain creatures can do different things. And it could be something where this face hugger in the egg that it was inside might have sensed that there was some sort of an environmental threat and that it needed to jettison something, almost like a sporulated fungi or something like that, fungi. In case Dan is listening to this, that could be an interesting way to look at it. That maybe this is like a biological adaptation where under stress, certain mechanisms are put in place to ensure survival at any cost. And so instead of just releasing this, little black goo pod that would just dissipate into whatever substrate it went into out in the open, it was released as like a little kind of creature lit that could, have some degree of motility and could implant itself. I love the idea. It's crazy. The lung, Joe undergoes a pneumonectomy, I think is what you'd call it, right? If the lung is removed, one of his lungs, and the lung then becomes this substrate into which this Plagiaris praepotens, or this, embryo or whatever you want to call it, is going to be harvested or going to be grown in. And I'm really excited to see what happens with that. I think that's really cool. The shot of the lung in that case has been there since one of the first trailers for this thing, and we have been going back and forth like nonstop on this thing, like what it could be. And I thought it was one of the creatures. I thought it was this weird kind of histological looking, alien or something, which maybe it will end up being. I guess we'll see what happens. But I really love. Oh, actually, I just connected something that I saw in another trailer, and I just figured out what's going to happen. But that's okay. I'm really excited to see what goes on with that. I think that's really, really cool. And something else also, just to get to quickly, is the idea of like a psychological link with the aliens, or with an acoustical link with the aliens. That is something that has shown up in a few places, and especially in the comic realm, to varying degrees of believability. None. And so it's not varying at all. Here it's interesting because it's treated almost like an acoustical phenomenon. Like it's not like when Mara was talking in Slightly's ear and it's just this like voice beckoning, which makes sense from a technological standpoint. Instead, it's almost like there's this kind of acoustical relay going on where there's almost interference being caused, like feedback from a microphone. And Wendy seems really attuned to it. And that gets me to this idea that's been bandied about quite a bit, where maybe Wendy, sorry if I'm going off, whatever. We're just going to talk. We're just going to talk. We're going to let her run.
Go ahead.
So we've been talking around a lot of theories about this, about the idea of why these children in particular were selected. I have put forth, and I have not finished this show yet. I will have soon, and I'm sad about that. But for now, I don't know what's going to happen yet. So I'm going to say this anyway. I don't know if these kids were ever actually sick. Like, I think it would make a lot of sense if they just had certain genetic markers that the company had identified, and the company might have reverse Munchausen these kids and convinced the parents that the kids were sick and that the kids needed treatment, and been poisoning them and poisoning them and poisoning them, to the point where they said the only way to ensure the survival of your child is to do this new procedure. And you're never going to see them again, but at least you'll know that they will live and they'll be safe. And the parents basically signed the children away, and that those children then were used for this horrible experiment, and were just completely just outright murdered. That these kids were poisoned and killed because they had something potent within them that could allow this transference to happen. And I think that might be something that's going on with Wendy, with this acoustical transference thing, that there's something going on with her mind and the way that it works, especially in concert with biological adaptive species like the alien. There could be something to that, I think. That's something that I would love to see explored more, maybe even in another season. And just to that end, we don't know what happened to her father, who of course is awkwardly played by Noah Hawley himself. Um, my current theory, or something I'm hoping happened, is the company had him killed somehow to get him out of the picture, because he was her last remaining parent and they wanted access to her. And I just think that Prodigy is like I've been saying a lot in the chat, it's a technocratic monopoly run by a sociopath. Like, it is just it's a bad organization with bad morals, and it gets what it wants, and it owns the city with all the people in it. And I think that it can kind of do what it wants, no matter what. And I think these children could be a really great example of that. And I'm very glad that the show, even though it's already only episode 3 and we still have more than half to go, I'm very glad the show is already kind of getting to that idea and showing us like the dark underbelly of what on its face looks like progress. Like Dame Sylvia, right? Like, I believe that she in her heart believes that she's doing the right thing for these kids. I believe that she thinks that they are doing the right thing for disease and for suffering. But I think she's gradually realizing, and so is Arthur Sylvia, of course, that something very different is actually happening, and that they are not only party to it, they are committing it. And I think that is a pretty desperate thing to realize.
Yeah, all really great points, Patrick. I am yeah, I wanted to touch on a few things that you brought up, but for the sake of time, I just you are so articulate in the way that you describe them, and I really love the reversed Munchausen. How do you, Munchausen by proxy, right? Is the whole process where you make your kid sick for attention and all of that. And so that is just super interesting to me, and how terrifying is that? And I would love if that is built upon in these furthering seasons, as just like an overarching theme, specific to Prodigy and just a boy cavalier and knowing all of these things, but it's his selfish need to want to have like another genius person to have a conversation with. Like that's such like a butterfly of an idea, right? That you write into this show, but you're like, how horrific can we make that end product? Like, how do we trickle that down through a story? Let alone like Alien and be bringing that in. So that's just one huge piece that I really love that this show is bringing about, and it's very Westworldy to me. I loved season 1 and 2 of Westworld, and I loved the whole idea that, they were data mining all these people who went into the park, and then they were storing all that data into like one person's chip in their brain, into Delis's brain, and like those twists and turns in that show. I just hope we get some of that in Alien Earth, because I thought that was just so perfect in a sense. And so anyway, I just loved all of those. I love the alien tadpole. I'm really like, that's what I'm gonna call it. But I just am loving that whole life cycle, and I really hope that we get to see something scary with that, or like the Teocellus like latches on to the xenomorph, or something like that, where we get this sort of mixing of organisms. So I'm, yeah, just super excited and looking forward to see how they do that. And if we don't see that until season 2 or 3, like great. I'm here for that journey. So yeah, I can't wait. So many good things.
Yeah, the things I'm no there are two things I want to just comment on in terms of like previous films and what we've seen. The one is the subtle nod. Like this is how I feel you nod back to Ripley and previous characters. The Mora's character, where basically he wakes up, it's 65 years have gone by. He even says, everyone I know everyone I've ever loved or known is dead. I had a daughter. Um, that, clearly, I mean, immediately I'm like, Ripley, this is Ripley's story. But then there's a part where she's like, well, you signed a contract, you knew what you were getting into. And he's like, I'm not complaining. So it's almost like like a subtle dig at Parker and Brett too, right? Like he knew what he was signing up for. He knew this was part of that. So I liked that reference. And there was also a couple comments too, one with Morrow and Kirsch, where they referenced what it means to be a man and the best parts of a man. I think Kirsch's comment was, or Boy Cavalier telling Kirsch, you're supposed to be better than a man, right? Because he was like coming up with excuses why he let Wendy go into the thing, and he's like, you're not supposed to have excuses. You're supposed to be better than that. And then at one point, Morrow says something like, I'm the worst parts of a man, or I have the worst parts of a man. So I definitely think, and then coupled with Boy Cavalier's conversation with Curly about empathy versus ideas, I love where they're going with this and what makes a good human, what are like innovation and ideas are wonderful, but if it's lacking empathy or those softer sides, then that can be too much of a good thing, I guess. So I can't wait to where they take us with that.
Yes, and in terms of themes, and I love what they're doing with the alien itself, and opening the egg, things that we've not seen before, that layer underneath the outside shell, that I don't know what you'd call that. Patrick would probably know that word, that like,
Like a membrane.
yeah, the membrane. I love that, and just the amniotic fluid or whatever you want to call it that pours out, and the essentially it's an embryo. That's what it is. It's the embryo of the xenomorph, and it's really, really interesting to see it. We've never seen that before, but of course, that's what it has inside of it. I suppose it could have, in another iteration, used the black goo and put that, and then that develops into something or whatever. But they've made the choice like, no, 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 no. This thing is stuffing an embryo down whatever's throat into their body, which makes sense that it would be. And I love that. I love the care that they're taking to explore what this is, the care that they're taking to move. We've seen in alien films them dissecting a face hugger to varying degrees, but this is different. This is a slower investigation of what this is or what it could be, and I'm here for it. And the effects, the effect of that tadpole, of that embryo, is perfect. It looks real. It doesn't look like, it doesn't move to CGI. I don't know if it's a mix between CGI and something real. It could be. I love that effect. And you don't know where it's going. You don't know where it's going. And I mean, I do because I've seen episode 4, but but I still don't know where it's going. I don't know what's going to happen. And that terrifies me. And I love to kind of pull back larger picture. And someone said this earlier in a chat Patrick and I are in, as a critique, that they didn't like the Blade Runner stuff in this show. I fucking love it. I love it. I love these questions. I'm here for it. I'm here for what makes us, again, something I alluded to earlier, what makes us human. And these themes are being explored by everyone, by the androids, by the hybrids, by the people in control. The only person who's not having that conversation is Boy Cavalier, which I think is very, very telling because he doesn't give a shit. You can see in his eyes, played so wonderfully by that actor who I can never remember his name,
Samuel Blanken.
Samuel Blanken. Oh, okay. You can see so wonderfully the lack of empathy. Like that's how well he's playing this role. There's vacancy there. All you see in his eyes are, I want this. I want to be better. I want to be first. I want to own this. You don't see, even when um, they are like, he's around the kids, he's not hearing them. He's only hearing his usefulness of them, what they can do for him. He's a fantastic character. He is a version of Neander Wallace without the grace. No one knows who Neander Wallace is. Neander Wallace was in 2049, played by Jared Leto. A wonderful role, a wonderful character. But Neander Wallace had this, again, this panache, this grace, this elegance about him. Even though he was still smarmy and gross, you didn't really get that sense from him. Whereas with Boy Cavalier, he lacks that grace. He's just there for himself. And I'm interested to see where he comes from. Who is he? Obviously, he gave himself that name. He gave himself the name. Why did he give himself the name? Where are his parents? Who is this guy? And even though he's not questioning who he is, we are as the audience. So we're questioning everything. What is in front of us? And we don't know. And I don't know if we'll ever know. We'll just ponder it. And that's where I want to be.
Amen. We do have to wrap. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining. This has been wonderful. The comments tonight are incredible, and we will 100% circle back and get some of these on roundtables and other places. So please stay tuned. We have a special treat for those of you who are going to be listening to the podcast version of this, in that we have some interviews that are going to be playing right after we wrap this. And we are happy to tell you that there's going to be quite a lot of these coming in the coming weeks. And we will let you be surprised by exactly who's coming on the show. But it's going to be pretty cool.
Stay tuned next week, everybody.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
See you then.
Thanks,
Bye, everybody.
everybody.